David Nicholson joins me now from Sharm el-Sheikh, the site of COP27 conference. He's the Chief Climate Officer of Mercy Coprs, a humanitarian organization, and as I mentioned, joins us from Egypt. David, what is your takeaway from this meeting between U.S. climate envoy John Kerry and his Chinese counterpart? We should caution, were not formal negotiations because those have not resumed yet. But how important is it for the two largest emitters in the world to talk?
Listen, the scale and the urgency of the climate crisis is unprecedented, and we know that urgent progress is needed on multiple fronts at these set of meetings. We've got to make progress on renewed funding commitments. We need progress on scaling adaptation solutions, and we need to find a solution to funding the losses and damages that we're increasingly seeing as extreme weather events, go beyond countries' abilities to cope and adapt. And the US and China are fundamental to each of those negotiations. And there's tough negotiations ahead. These are very complex issues, and each of them will require strong leadership and real commitment from the largest nations in the world.
I think one of the big concerns is, at least what we've seen in past conferences, there's definitely a commitment, there's a pledge, there's a resolute determination to come up with solutions. But when it comes to action, a lot of these countries don't follow through. Can there be any kind of accountability so these countries do keep their word, that words actually translate into action?
It's certainly a big theme of the meetings here, and as you point out, we have seen the funding commitments that have been made by the wealthy countries at previous meetings have not yet been met. And certainly Mercy Coprs, along with our colleague agencies and partners, have been really trying to draw attention to this financing gap and ensure that first and foremost countries do live up to those commitments. As you say, there is a lot of desire in these meetings to meet that. There are political realities everywhere that have to be navigated, and we need to be pragmatic, but we have to keep that pressure on to make sure that the funding commitments that have been made, at least $100 billion a year globally from wealthy countries initially, those funding commitments have to be met. We also know that those commitments alone are not enough, and we desperately need other solutions for larger scale funding and financing to come into climate action. And that requires not just the action of governments, but private sector, philanthropic partners, and civil society altogether.
David, what's going to happen if that funding, the significant amount that we're talking about to help coastal communities, to help countries that are the most vulnerable, what happens if that funding does not come through?
We're really at a decisive moment right now when it comes to adaptation and resilience building. If we invest wisely now, if we get the kind of money on the table that is urgently required, then there is still a real chance for people, for communities, for businesses everywhere to be able to cope with the climate crisis. We know the threats that are coming, we know the risks are growing, and we still think there is time for these solutions to be scaled across countries. If we don't meet these funding commitments, we will be facing millions more lives lost and trillions of dollars lost as the extreme weather events occur more and more and the climate crisis continues to grow.
Let me ask you about the Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda, a big focus on Tuesday. What do you make of that, and how significant is this?
It's very, very welcome. And, for a long time, the adaptation agenda has been overshadowed by efforts to talk about mitigation, and we've been pushing for quite some time to get equal funding, first of all, towards adaptation as there is to mitigation. There seems to be growing recognition of the need for that now. The adaptation agenda has put forward a series of concrete outcomes that adaptation should be seeking, as well as a menu of solutions that can be rolled out at scale across multiple countries. This is a really concrete step forward, but we have to recognize that adaptation and resilience building are context specific. We need the funding to go to countries and to down to the municipal level within countries where adaptation plans really have to concretely take shape and be implemented. This is not a conversation that can stay at the global level.
All right. David Nicholson joining us from Sharm el-Sheikh. Thank you very much.